Hey, last week I did a couple check-ins. It was the first week in a good while that I had traveled, and the primary focus of this travel, among other things, but the primary focus was continuing education. And I want to talk about something first. At the meeting of the minds, Perform Better, back in December, did things a little bit differently for the first in-person event that they have run for a good while. And at the end of every talk, Scott Livingston did a little Q&A that would kind of take the place of the typical Q&A that you see during that type of event that we typically see in the summer. And one of the questions that he asked was, Charlie, what's part of your BS meter in terms of how you, the listener, the student, evaluate different messengers? And I said some things that I definitely believe. The one thing I didn't say, though, was when you judge who you're listening to how they come to their message, do they ever talk about any of the things that they're currently doing to be in your place, to be in the place of a learner, to be in the place of a student? And to that end, it may not be the only values, but did you pay for your flight to get there? Did you pay for your hotel? Did you pay for your rental car? Did you pay full tuition to sit, in the very last seat in the room? So I think when somebody can honestly say they've done those things, the financial component and the time component isn't as important as some of the other things of filtering the quality of the information, but it shows that the person themselves is still learning. Even if they just read a book, are they talking about what that book meant to them and how or if it changed anything that they did? So I think over the last little while, for a lot of good reasons, a lot of the things that I've done have been online, and quite frankly, I'm glad that that happened, because these are probably seminars or online products, if you will, that I never would have had the time to get into. Now, I think there's this, whether that's continually what you do, let's come back and talk about it, whereas if somebody only talks about their wild messages of this and that, I'm not sure that that's nearly as credible a message. So let's just talk a little bit. The first seminar, now I was an invited guest to the NFL Strength Coaches Conference at the Combine, and a full day of education. And I think many of us have heard of Keith Barr, researcher at UC Davis, talking a lot about muscle function and tendon response to training. And something that I think a lot of times when you hear people talk a lot, the message might actually be the same, but you're different. And there've been some significant opportunities over the last year and a half to apply some of the strategies that Keith Barr would be talking about. So you come back and listen again, and you're trying to look at things in a little different way. So that might be going to the same seminar over again. I was just messaging with someone today, and they said they took a seminar, and I haven't used those clinical techniques in a long time, so I just took level 1 over again. Whereas I know a lot of people, I'm not going to go see Charlie's seminar. I did that seminar 4 years ago or whatever. Well, good luck. I don't really do seminars anymore. But my point is that you are allowed to do things over again and listen to the same people. And maybe it's just a YouTube where you go back and watch it every 3 or 4 months. I've said before, every year I read Dale Carnegie, and the last one was different, so call me out, but it was how to make friends in a digital age, and then really the book wasn't really that different than the original book. But regardless, Keith Barr, I think the message that's important is we can probably for some methods, take the exact same weight. Let's say the bar is loaded to whatever, and if we train the same movement really, really fast, So we think we're angling towards power training. Let's say it's there's 35%, 40% on the bar, and we're running something that's really, really fast, and you take the same 35, 40% and run 2020, oxidative training, statodynamic, in other terms, they're all synonyms. You're getting two completely different adaptations. Depending on your work to rest ratios, you're getting two completely different physiological responses. But if we train really, really fast, maybe you're affecting the tendon and maybe improving performance, but you're potentially leaving some injury risk on the table for a muscle injury. Maybe we're doing great things at the tendon, which typically translates to an explosive effort, but that's why we see a lot of these jumping beans, particularly in certain sports where maximum speed is incredibly valued, then put that to other under recovery factors, we see these muscle injuries. Now, if you use the same exact load and train slower, you're not improving stiffness at the tendon. You're probably doing some positive things at the muscle and maybe mitigating some. Now, how do you know where the middle is? And that's the dance. But I think that when you listen to a researcher who's going to just try to understand what the truth is, you take the truth and then you try to fit it back into your world. And these are unfortunate statements I've made in the past too, that people completely bastardize and, well, you said I should do that, but not when you work for me. You don't get that chance to do that. We're going to stay within the vision of the business model. But the Keith Baar is got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and his research papers really give us some interesting things to think about in terms of what are we actually doing, what is happening to the tissues when you train in different ways, and how do you pick? Because everything is never going to be one thing or the other, but I don't think we know what the right mix is and for who, because there's different people that require different things, and you might be okay with your 4-3 guy playing 13 games every year because he's going to have muscle injuries. Or you may be okay with him becoming a 4-3-7 guy, which is a huge difference, but maybe play 15 games instead of less. So I don't know that there's any evidence to support that, but there is some thought to get into that place, and that's what I got out of Keith Baar. The second talk, I didn't really, I wasn't terribly engaged. The talk was primarily nutrition and hydration, and I don't know that there was anything that kind of shook me up. Maybe others. However, the whole idea of when you're training intensely, to use diets that are or eating strategies that are typically associated with losing weight. It doesn't mean that these have no role for someone, but to limit carbs, to limit certain, or to use terms of eating approaches that don't even make sense. It's questionable. And some from the hydration piece, same thing. Like they're probably not as sensible, even though we think we're doing good things. So I think the talk just didn't have a high level of resonance to me, given, or it might also be where my perspective is when it comes to nutrition and hydration. I'm a short order cook. I do what so-and-so says until we see that it doesn't make sense. So that was there. And then lastly, Boo Schexnayder, we actually spent about 3 hours in the morning at breakfast just talking shop. And I had seen his talk previously at the NSCA in Orlando, and I'm like, there's a ton of parallels here to what we're doing with the Elite Performer program. And we just batted it around, and in his talk, it's definitely going to be a challenge because he's talking about ideal rehab strategies, probably for an explosive athlete. In his case, seen a lot of track folks, but a lot of other sports that will utilize his services in a post-rehab setting. Probably, I think he said in the talk that he's talking about 6 weeks. In my mind, I want that program from day one. and we just continually lateralize and regress from the different positions. And we discussed how I used his program, not mine. I used his cycling 3 days for some studs over the last several months since hearing his talk, because it was somewhat easy to translate his 3 days into the 5 days that I might want to do, because the protocols are very similar. He just organized them in a different way, and it made a ton of sense. So I'm like, let's just try it and see where this goes, because in my situations, unlike Boo, I'm not seeing them for 12, 20 weeks. So if I can pass on a rolling cycle of 3 days, take a day off whenever, probably a little bit less daunting to control than 5 days where every day is somewhat different. Mondays and Thursdays are relatively the same. So, but you also need to have significant consistency if you are in a situation where the medical folks, and the medical folks might actually be two categories. You've got the surgeon, and then you've got the rehab folks, your athletic trainers, your certified athletic trainers, and your physical therapist, and then you've got the strength and conditioning or the fitness or the performance side. Those are three situations where they might have completely different perspectives, and in my mind, I'm not even sure why the surgeon would be involved in the rehab process. You just follow a couple rules and be done with it. If it's a knee, there aren't too many things that are that significant. Obviously, some more than others, but there's not that many to begin with. But like, I find that weird that, oh, well, the surgeon said you can't do that yet. Really, why? Like, there's no physiological reason, there's no tissue reason, there's nothing that would say this. But you might have three different perspectives, and I'm thinking like, man, you gotta have a tight program, or this won't work. And then it turns into Dr. Frankenstein, and you just do part of it because these are the things you can get away with in terms of the trainers not supporting what the fitness folks are doing. To me, it's just weird that why anybody would not want to do that. Particularly from a level of something conservative. And it's not conservative versus aggressive. It's conservative versus normal. Why would you not take the opportunities to introduce stress and load into the system if it's safe and physiologically warranted? Well, how do you, it just is. Like it's not a matter of someone's opinion that looks at things more aggressively. I had this conversation, totally different situation, a very significant rotator cuff repair. And day one, and every day as needed, we go over the protocol to discuss this is what the patient can expect, and this is where we're going. And in this case, because there was a significant degree of chronicity, the protocol was not on sync with when the patient was able was convinced to start rehab. The surgeon felt that they would wait 3 weeks, which I have no issue with, because that's that's clearly a period of time where there could be some decisions. But the protocol had basically this patient's beginning of week 4 would be week 1. So I wanted him to understand that we're going to be behind this piece of paper. Don't worry what this piece of paper said. And in effect as well, that piece of paper said everything is a range anyway. It's a solid group of surgeons that don't tell you have to do this at this day. Like, what if you don't have that piece of equipment? Or what if you have a different approach or perspective? So that was all very, very solid. So I said, no, to me, is that conservative? That's not for me to decide. I didn't do the surgery, and this is where we're at anyway. Like, we can't go back. It doesn't matter what my opinion is on that. Now, if there's something that I am not conservative on, or you might perceive it as aggressive, it's what's not on that piece of paper. Meaning, what can we do with the sling on your shoulder to improve hormonal and humoral impacts on the healing process? what can we do to improve a hormonal profile? What can we do to improve or maintain an elite immune profile? What can we do to have a cardiac system that supports the healing process, aka a highly valuable eccentric heart? What can we do to have oxidative function of everywhere around the joint and the rest of the body so that we can use oxygen that supports the healing process? A lot of those processes, not all, are a very systemic adaptation. Meaning, if you use your legs, in theory, to develop increased mass of endocrine glands, which then improves your hormonal profile, it's not like those hormones don't affect what happens in your shoulder. So that's a very similar approach. But to me, that's not aggressive, because if it hurts the shoulder, then it's not an option. So again, these aren't the exact concepts that Boo was talking about, but it made me think that, like, why wouldn't we be doing these things? Why is this even a talk? Like, why wouldn't the medical and fitness people just be doing the same things anyway, as governed by an intelligent system, guided by intelligent and no more aggressive than necessary in terms of neurology and physiology? So now that's just a big advertisement for the whole training equals rehab model. And I think if you're far away from that, I think the stuff that Boo was talking about is going to be very challenging to put together, because if the medical people say you can't do it, or if you're fitness or training and you're not even aware of these concepts, it's going to be a tough get. But that, I thought that was another fantastic talk, and even better to be able to sit with someone that I respect and just bat it around, and some really good things there. We might actually spend some time at LSU over the next couple months just to continue to bat it around. Went out to LA and took a couple meetings. I love LA. It just seems I always have time to sit at a coffee shop and just look. I never have time like that when I seem like when I'm home. But then I took Eldoa 3. There's probably another day, another time to talk about those particular osteopathic strategies. Now, I was familiar with almost all of the Eldoa that are taught in Eldoa 3, because a lot of my training is from non-formal settings. Other people show it to you, and okay, like, just like we're talking about with spending time with Boo. But just a lot of times to get it tightened up, and I think it is important to respect the commercial model. Like, what is it that they are saying from a neurological standpoint, a physiological standpoint? Wait, tell me what you think it does. Show me how to do it the way you think is perfect, and then you riff off of that. I think a lot of times, if you're only getting educated in an informal setting, you're getting something that's already morphed into something that has multiple perspectives. Particularly with Eldoa, where the execution of these exercises is incredibly demanding. I can only do a couple of them, just given what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So I can't even demonstrate it to some people, which is a significant limitation. So I needed to be there, and I basically got 3 days of being coached. Now that I had to go to California to do that, and I paid full price, and I'm a student just like everybody else in the room. I'm proud of those things. My point is that why did I go if I felt like I already knew how to do it? Because now I know them better, and I have a higher level of understanding of what this commercial model was talking about. And something that I mentioned to a text message thread that I had earlier today. Not once did the instructor even imply that other ways are bad. And I think in some of the best stuff out there, it's easy to say that because it's the best. And that goes back to what I said in the beginning, in that BS meter with Scott Livingston from last December. How do you know who to listen to? Well, do they ever talk about other models by name? And do they always say, like, don't do this, do my stuff instead? And I wound up having that kind of talk with the instructor, and it's why I haven't really done my own seminars, because it's not what people want. People want to show me this, and then they want to see people fight, and while I am very, very comfortable fighting and presenting my case, is not healthy. It's a dumb way, and I'm glad that I learned to get out of that. And now I was just extremely happy that I got a big return on my time and my resources to go out to California for Eldoa 3. So that's how I spent my week, and back at it here in Florida. And it was cold in California. I don't how does that even? When I was there in 18, it rained for 5 consecutive weeks, but it was never really that cold. It was cold. So I don't know what's going on here. And like in Florida, it was cold for like 3 days. But it was a good trip, and able to come back and share some perspectives, not only clinically, but how people teach, who the student is, and what are the best things that you can look for to decide where you should go next. So last thing, if any of you have noticed, yes, this is a Pokemon t-shirt, and there might be some familiar faces, but I'm going to show you one that you have not seen. All right? Now, my friends in China may recognize some of these terms, but you have not seen this shirt before, because this was from the official release of Ryan Reynolds' Pokemon. So I know celebrities too. Hey, anybody seen a leprechaun? Say yeah.